Hi everyone, I'm Tanishka and you might know me as the Moon Woman. This is my astro forecast for the new moon in Scorpio, which we're approaching on the 28th of October. That's happening at 2:38 p.m. Sydney, Melbourne, Australia, 11:38 p.m. the night before for those of you in New York on the 27th of October. If you're in LA, San Fran, that's oh gosh, totally blanked. Hang on, I'll pull it up. Here it is. 8:35 p.m. on the 27th. That's Sunday night, and I'll publish all the different time zones in my Astro Oracle. So this is likely to be a very intense new moon. We have Sun and Moon in Scorpio. The Sun and Moon are always conjunct, so appearing on top of each other at new moon. So from our vantage point on Earth, if we were to look through a telescope, it looks like they're right next to each other. And when they're in the same sign, it really brings up the traits of that sign. But at new moon, which is the darkest moon phase, it can bring up the shadow traits of that sign. So Shadow Scorpio is somebody who seeks vengeance. They want to hurt people that hurt them. And we do this when we haven't integrated and seen how our own choices led to our own wounding. Okay, so we feel, justified in our rage to exact punishment on others. And, in our culture, we see this kind of tit for tat fighting in wars, but that's a reflection in the macrocosm of what's happening in the microcosm, in our interpersonal relationship dynamics. So, the Scorpion is the lowest expression of Scorpio. That's, vigilante justice, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But when we awaken the serpentine energy of our Kundalini, the force, our life force, up through the 7 gates or the 7 energy centers known as chakras, and we become self-aware physically, emotionally, mentally of our patterns all the way up, then we are more integrated with our shadow. So we see what our lower self, our child self, our teenage self, does in order to get their needs met in an unconscious way, using power, control, manipulation, which is what all children do. It's part of being human, and we need to accept that in ourselves, that when we are disempowered, when we are immature, when we are uninitiated into the mysteries of life, we act out like a child rather than taking responsibility for our shadow and the impact of our unconscious words and actions on others. So we will see ourselves as the victim even when we're being the aggressor. Okay. So this new moon is asking us to acknowledge where we are both, okay? Where we are both the light and the dark, rather than seeing ourselves polarized as all one and therefore casting someone else as the villain, for instance, or seeing someone else as all good and denigrating ourselves as all bad, okay? This new moon will set us free with truths that we didn't expect. They may be secrets that are revealed. They may be, insights into our own behavior that we were completely unaware of, that while they're hard to perhaps confront, they're empowering, because knowledge is power. The more self-knowledge we have, the more empowered we feel. So the saying, the truth will set us free, is very true for this coming new moon. Amplifying that, we have Uranus directly opposite The new moon occurs at 4 degrees, 0.25 in Scorpio, and right opposite at 4 degrees in Taurus, we have Uranus. So this is kind of like divine intervention with a Shazam lightning bolt saying, wake up to yourself, yeah? Wake up to your shadow, to the ways that you hurt yourself, to the ways that you hurt others, so that you can be responsible with your power. Because Scorpio is very much about how we use power. What is power? It is our ability to affect change. Now, all of life is change. That's just the nature of life. Okay, so there's no point in fearing change, and yet we do. But change is inevitable. We are going to see sudden change this new moon, okay, with Scorpio being the sign of death and rebirth, transformation, opposite Uranus, which is sudden change. Now, the key in that word is trance, transformation. When we enter into trance states, yeah, that's when we drop down, okay, from just being in thought, the 10% rational mind, into the subconscious, into the inner mythos, into the place of archetypes and images, right? Now, a lot of people these days are like glutting out on plant medicines because they're chasing the experience. Yeah, it's like, I'm so spiritual, I'm having these experiences. Yeah, well, not entirely. We need to be responsible with spiritual power. We have a fixed star called Surma. Yes, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Which is about taking responsibility for our sacred power conjunct this new moon. So, you know, just to have experiences, just like, you know, a kid wanting to taste all the different colored lollies in a bag, does not mean that you are spiritual, okay? The integration of the experience is where the transmutation happens. This is the totemic medicine of serpent, where we transmute the experience into understanding, okay? And there is not enough of that happening on the planet, okay? There's people chasing ecstatic experiences over here and shamanic experiences over there, but not enough integration. So that's where the magic is, when we bring the light and the dark together, yeah? Just like it takes the spirit and matter, or feminine masculine, to create life, okay? It's through the magic of polarity coming together that we have transformation. So just a warning, this new moon, there's a fixed star conjunct Uranus, which can really heighten the potential for destruction. So I don't mean to scare anyone, but this is a time when people could really act out in a way that's completely unhinged. So my prediction is the ERs, the mental health response units, are going to be absolutely inundated. If you get an intuitive vibe not to go to a shopping center or a Cineplex, somewhere where there's going to be a lot of people, don't go, okay? Because this is the kind of forecast that people could just totally lose it and act out, rather than, you know, be midwifed through a death and rebirth to transmute the suffering that they're experiencing internally. So this could also be a catalyst for unexpected house fires, electrocution, in terms of earth changes, volcanoes, earthquakes. The more that we deal with what it is that needs to change in our life, the less we need to attract a catalyst, such as a place burning down to ground zero, or, you know, an entire region affected by bushfires because they're not adapting to the change that is needed right now on the planet. Yes, I'm speaking about those that have got their head in the sand about climate change and then complaining about the bushfires. So you know, this is a time to wake up. That's what Uranus, it's like the judgment card, the second last major arcana card in the tarot, saying, wake up to yourselves, wake up to your responsibility to use your power wisely through the choices that you make. We may see sudden breakups happen, people feeling a need for greater freedom, but real freedom is found within, okay, through a spiritual practice, through finding the enlightenment of perspectives that set us free from the old paradigms of illusion. This is a time of us, you know, seeing clearly, oh my God, I've been stuck in an abusive relationship or in a control drama or in an uneven seesaw of power plays. This is when the shadow will be exposed. We're likely to see that with covert ops that have been done by those in power that are abusing their positions of power. Yeah, all of this is coming out, which it needs to. It's like a big festering boil beneath the surface that's got to come out. We've got to see how messy things are in order to then start the healing process. Now, I'd like to make the point that a good relationship is not necessarily a long one. So if you're someone that this new moon doesn't see it coming, but there is a relationship breakup, do not cast yourself as a failure, yeah? Because a good relationship is a catalyst for growth. It's transformative. And it becomes a good relationship in how much processing we do after it ends, yeah? That's truly valuing the experience, yeah? If we just scapegoat the other person and don't look at our own choices that led to our own abuse and suffering, we're not empowered by the experience of that relationship. So similarly, there may be people come together very suddenly around this time. However, a little bit of a caution. Relationships that start during such an intense, dark energy are likely to be quite an initiation into the Shadowlands. So for young girls, you know, possibly meeting a very charismatic, magnetic man who doesn't treat them well, but, you know, is as magnetic as, you know, something that's not good for them, but the forbidden fruit. And similarly, for young men, it might be being attracted to a woman who, you know, is abusive. So, you know, just be mindful if you're feeling this magnetic attraction to someone, stop and ask yourself why. Yeah, instead of just diving in headlong, because that sort of magnetic attraction happens when, you know, this person is representative of an old karmic dance that we've done, all right, maybe with a parent. And through that intensity, there is the opportunity for great learning, all right? But as a wise friend said, the beginning is in the end. Or no, the end is in the beginning. You can see, thank you, Miranda, you can see the signs, the warning signs at the beginning, but do we choose not to look? Okay. So getting back to this fixed star that's conjunct, Surma, it's one of the stars within the constellation of Virgo, which is referred to as the Virgin, but it means priestess. And this one is situated on her left calf, so on her feminine side. And what it means is, it comes from an ancient Syrian word, meaning Al-Ghafar. And thanks to the Astrology King for his information on this. And it means to cover, to protect, or how we veil in an effort to protect. And I want to speak to this because it's really come up for me in the last just few days, how much the mystic is veiled. I have spoken about this before. You know, we have pride marches now, thankfully, for our LGBT brothers and sisters, but There is no Pride March yet for mystics. This is an archetype that after the persecution of the last 2,000 years still remains hidden, okay? People do not want to be seen as, oh, you know, witchy or spiritual for fear of what people will think. So this is about that coming up to a head is my prediction. Yeah, I had an experience where I was asked to host a wedding, and then they said, actually, we're worried about what people will think, so would you just do it privately with us? And this reminded me of, you know, doing a Christmas party many, many years ago for a bunch of lawyers and doing their tarot cards, and one at a time they'd sit down and say, don't tell the others I'm really into this. And I thought, my God, if you'd just be honest with each other in the lunchroom, you'd have a much more fulfilling time at work. But, you know, it's this thing of veiling, yeah? So this is a time for unveiling the truth, and it's the mystics that make sense of the dark, make sense of the mystery. Yeah, it's like things we don't talk about, taboos. It's the mystics that bring those topics out to be discussed. So no wonder they're veiled and suppressed if people haven't dealt with the taboos. What are the taboos? Well, experiences with blood, sex, and death, right? So these are the life experiences that initiate our psyche to be exposed to the darker side of humanity, the human psyche, and we then have to learn to integrate that experience, to transmute it from pain into wisdom. And traditionally it was the mystics that would help people to do that through initiation, through sacred ceremony. And I'm excited to announce we're going to launch a challenge while the sun's moving through Scorpio. So stay tuned for this. It's an opportunity to help lift the veil on the collective and for us to all step into great personal power by journeying into these taboos consciously. Okay, so stay tuned for that. But the Arabic word also means the train of a garment, okay, this fixed star, which is, you know, like a wedding dress, okay? It's what is left behind, the trail, okay, that we leave behind us. So it's turning around to face what is the impact of my words and my actions so that we can take responsibility for it. I would ask that, you know, this star is associated with spiritual responsibility, yeah? And I see that as not doing spiritual bypassing. In other words, it's all love and light, you know. No, it's actually not. Yeah, if we're just disassociating up here, we're not aware of the ways that our wounded self is acting out. And the more we do that work, the more we integrate our shadow, the more energy we free up that we do have to wield to create. So this is the path to greater power, greater personal power. This is why in the ancient world, people would be initiated before relationship, before parenthood. Yeah, you had to become more responsible with your power before you were in a position of having greater power. Otherwise, you would do more harm with it. And again, I speak about this in a lot more detail in my book that's coming up, The Grail. So other aspects that we've got playing out at the moment, well, for this new moon at least that's coming up, Saturn square Mars. So there may be frustration around limits being put on taking forward action, maybe some, you know, at authority figures. But remember this, it's all the divine plan. Everything's coming in and happening at the perfect time. So, you know, no point throwing a tantrum if things aren't happening according to what your 10% rational mind's timeline is. Saturn places restrictions on us, but ultimately that strengthens our resolve, our determination, our commitment. It makes us stop, question things, question ourselves. Yeah. So it helps the crop to ripen so that it is strong and sturdy, okay, rather than just, you know, built on good intentions. Now, there was something I did want to speak about. This fixed star, Sirmia, it represents asking for forgiveness. Now, I've written about this in my Grail book. Just asking for forgiveness is not enough, right? Why do I say that? Well, anyone can step into a confessional and say, you know, I've done this, 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 and this. Please absolve my sins by granting me forgiveness, right? And then go out and do the same stuff. That's why we have mob leaders in the mafia that are practicing Catholics. It doesn't mean that they've actually atoned for what they've done, all right? Now, we are entering into Scorpio. Scorpio is the 11th sign. So we will be coming up to 11/11, all right, after this new moon. And the lesson of 11/11 is not just unity consciousness, everyone meditating together, we're all one happy family. It is to be at one with my brother, with my sister. How do I heal separation when I've wronged somebody? I make amends. Yeah? I don't just say, oh, I did that bad thing to you. Will you forgive me? No. I consider, how could I use the awareness that I've now got from doing that thing and realizing the impact it had, and using this feeling of guilt, of uncomfortability, of shame, of judgment. How can I transmute those feelings? By taking right action, yeah? By making amends, making the world different, making a difference with that greater awareness. When someone truly atones for what they've done, forgiveness is given easily. So the reason that we go, God, I can't forgive that person, it's not necessarily all on us, right? Oh, I'm not spiritual enough, you know? No, we're waiting to see evidence. Has that person got the lesson? Yeah? Now, that isn't to say we, you know, use power over somebody and make them feel bad and guilty, you know, until they atone. But understanding means that we don't expect ourselves just to forgive someone because they ask for forgiveness. Word is not enough. Deed is what makes the word good. Otherwise, it's just word and it's empty. It means nothing. Yeah? So, first of all, of course, we have to forgive ourselves for the choices that enabled us to be complicit in our own wounding and suffering. Yeah? If we don't take that responsibility, of course, we will vilify the other and continue to seek retribution and punish them, shadow Scorpio. But it is understandable that we want to see atonement. Yeah? This is what we are now moving towards as a species as we enter in the pillars of the Aquarian age. We will find that grace through atonement. So, we also have Venus and Mercury conjunct in Scorpio. So Lilith is likely to come out. I'm talking about the wild woman aspect. She who cannot not speak the truth. Yeah, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's not received well and we are rejected or there is an argument because we dare to speak what is true for us, right? So I mentioned I did a bridal shower and I asked the women to give their relationship advice to the bride while we were pampering her. And it was triggering for my inner Lilith to hear well-meaning, uninitiated women telling her if she gets angry, that her partner's, you know, triggered her anger, just breathe and return to a state of love and treat him like a hero and let him lead and unconditionally love him. No, this is to parent him, to not make him aware that we also have needs. Yeah, this is patriarchal conditioning. It is not realistic, because if we don't express the anger, it will implode and create cancer, right? Why do we have a pandemic of cancer? We're not dealing with the shadow. So if you feel darker emotions, darker mental states, you need to release them in a conscious, safe container, such as, you know, doing bioshaking, or dancing it out to music, yeah, moving it, breath work, getting that energy out so it's not imploding, and then honoring, I was feeling so much of a charge, I will be betraying myself if I don't speak my truth. But you don't go and speak your truth when you're all charged up, because all they're going to get is rah! And they're not going to be able to hear anything that you're saying, because they'll be busy shielding themselves from the blowtorch. So, yeah, there's my words of insight. I hope that's helpful. And if you feel to share this, please do. Keep an eye out for the initiation challenge. And yeah, if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, just Google The Moon Woman on YouTube. And if you want to subscribe to my fortnightly Astro Oracle newsletter, again, you'll find details on themoonwoman.com. So blessings as we delve into the shadowlands that is Scorpio, that if we embrace it, offers us a complete rebirth and a whole new level of empowerment. All right, blessings.